So, in fact, on German reunification day, which is the question was, Germany is reunited, which means it was divided. When did that happen?
In
Yeah.
1989 or 1990, around that time.
Yes. So what happened in '89?
So Berlin Wall was broken down. So
Yeah, Berlin Wall was broken down in '89, and then
and then I think West Germany and East
11,
Germany were
11
reunited.
months later, or roughly a year later, Germany, the two Germanys reunited into one. What were the two Germanys? West and East, yeah. West Germany and East Germany, okay. What was peculiar about them? When did they get separated? When did they get partitioned?
Just after World War II,
Yes, just after World War II, which was when?
40, 47 or something? No, 40, 45. I don't know.
World War II happened during which years? 39 to 45, yeah. So 1945. After 1945, they were partitioned. Yeah. Why were they partitioned?
Like the other country, war atrocities. So they wanted to, punish them. So embargoes and
No,
partition.
not really. Yeah, you can venture. If it is not correct, we'll edit out. It won't go online, don't worry. Anyway, 1945, who fought the war against Germany? The Allies. Who fought the war against Germany?
The Allies.
The Allies. The Allies were who?
US, UK,
US, UK,
Russia,
Russia,
France.
France. Primarily these four. Okay, US, UK, India.
UK, yeah, with the
Yeah,
UK.
so India also. I mean, Indian soldiers also fought. Both the world wars for the UK. Okay. So, when Germany was defeated, when actually the Russians took Berlin, the Russians were the ones who took Berlin. And once Germany was defeated, then the four Allied powers were the ones who occupied Germany. And then there was a conference, or several conferences, in which it was decided, the fate of Germany was decided. And there, of course, by that time, what was the difference between the Western Allies and Russia? France, UK, and US and Russia. What was the major political difference between them?
Russia was communist.
Russia was a communist country. Yes, Russia was a communist country, whereas the other three, Britain was still colonial power, and so was France, and the US was, of course, a free market economy, or whatever else you want to call it. So then each of these countries basically split up Germany into zones. Okay. And then, of course, the Russians were the major fighting force on the ground in the war, and the Russians also had occupied a very large area that became the eastern sector. The Russian sector became the German Democratic Republic, the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, or in German, die Deutsche Demokratische Republik, or DDR. Okay, in German it's the DDR, in English it's the GDR, German Democratic Republic. And the French, the American, and the British occupied zones. They merged into what became, what is Germany's official name? No, official name in English. It is the Federal Republic of Germany, or the FRG in English, and in German it is the Bundesrepublik Republik Deutschland, okay, or Bundesrepublik Deutschland. It's the BRD, the BRD in German. Okay, yeah, fine, fine. So this is just a small detour into history. Yeah, so in 1989, you're quite right. 1989 November, the wall came down. It was popular pressure. It was people on the streets who brought the wall down. What did not happen is that the East German forces who were guarding the wall of course, yeah, why was the wall there? Sorry, why was the wall there in Berlin, first of all? Berlin had a special status. Of course, Berlin was one of the biggest cities in the world, and it had a special status. Berlin also was split up into 4 zones, like the country itself was split up. So Berlin also, I mean, if you consider this as Germany and Berlin somewhere here, then as Germany was split up into whatever 4 zones, so was Berlin. Okay, this is a very bad graphic representation, but so was Berlin. And the same thing happened in the sense that the 3 sectors of Berlin, which were administered by the 3 Western allies, that were France and the UK and the United States, they became what was called West Berlin, and the sector that was administered by Russia, that became East Berlin. East Berlin became then the capital of the GDR, okay, or of East Germany, of the Deutsche Demokratische Republik, East Berlin or Berlin, and West Berlin then. So you see what happened, that Berlin was then an island within East Germany. So people living in these sectors were actually West German citizens living geographically in East Germany, cut off from the West. So there were corridors connecting the West to the East, the corridors which could also be blocked off by East Germany. So there was a Berlin blockade at some point of time. Maybe you can just Google the Berlin blockade and see what happened. Then the Allies airlifted supplies into West Berlin and so on. So quite an exciting history actually Germany has. Pre-war, it is it is quite excruciating, the pre-war history, the Nazi period and the World War itself. Post-war, actually, in how a democratic country comes about, it's a very interesting history that Germany has. So, so this border, which was the border between the western and the eastern sectors of Berlin, was till 1961 it was porous. So, for example, eastern citizens could go across into the west and so on and so forth. It was a porous border. But then in 1961, the East Germans discovered that they were losing a lot of so-called human resource to the West, because the West had more money, offered more money. And so the wall came up in Berlin. I mean, the fence came up overnight actually, and then it was converted into a very elaborate structure with several layers to protect the eastern population from being seduced by the West and going over to the West, so to say. Okay, so and then this wall which came up, which separated East and West Berlin, also then became known as the Iron Curtain. Okay, that was the curtain that separated the West from the East. And if you go a little bit into the history of the second half of the 20th century, you will find that the history of the world is dominated by the Cold War between the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and the USA. So the West and the Eastern Bloc. Then you had the NATO. What is the NATO? What is the NATO?
North American Treaty Organization.
North
American, yes.
Atlantic. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. That's a military gathering of the former Western allies, and you had then in the eastern sector also something called the Warsaw Pact came up. Okay, the Warsaw Pact, which so the entire history of the 20th century second half was dominated by the Cold War, and there was so to say an impregnable, impenetrable curtain between the West and the East, and that was symbolized globally by the Berlin Wall. Okay, so as a city, Berlin is still, I mean, it is a most beautiful and a most lively city. It was a very, very lively, important cultural center in definitely in the Western world, but I would say even in the world as such for quite a long time. And so the division of Berlin into two sectors which could not then, which separated, I mean, there are still sites in Berlin where, you know, the houses got separated, families got separated and things like that. So it is, Germany also has a history of partition, like India has a history of partition, a very traumatic history of partition. The loss of life in the German partition was not as heavy, nowhere near as heavy as the Indian partition, but it is also a certain traumatic history that Germany has, which got in a sense healed in 1990. 1989, of course, then there was that came also in the wake of the fact that the USSR, the Soviet Russia, which was the binding force of the Eastern Bloc, itself disintegrated, and Russia became a separate country, and all the other Soviets, they became independent countries. So in the wake of that, a lot of changes took place in Europe. One of the most important fallouts of which was that the Berlin Wall fell, and once the Berlin Wall fell, once there was no longer this separation, there was also a fence, by the way, running from north to south, which also separated the two Germanys. And whenever you went by train, if you wanted to go from here to West Berlin, you would be checked at 2 points by the East German guards, border guards. Okay, so every train would stop at a station, and the guards would check the whole train, and then it would go non-stop up to West Berlin. Or if it stopped, then they would be very, very controlled getting in and getting out of the train. Okay, so the point is, then the wall fell, and then the two Germanys, within 11 months of that, the two Germanys became one. 3rd October is the German reunification day. 3rd of October, just one day after Gandhi Jayanti, is the reunification day. So we have now class rep, we have pattern of evaluation, which is 20, 20, 10, 50. 50 for end semester, 20, 20 for 2 quizzes, and 10 marks for a small project, which is basically any aspect of German life, of German history, literature. You want to, you should, not want to, you should find out about a little, research a little, and write how long it should be, what details it should contain, etc. We will work it out a little later. Do not have to start asking me that question. Is that okay? Is that acceptable as an evaluation pattern for this group? Do you have any suggestions or objections to this 20, 20, 10, 50? You have already done the basics of verb conjugation yesterday with Shashireka, and we also, I think, revised that a little bit. Die Zahlen 0 bis 12. This also is clear. Wie ist deine Telefonnummer? Wie ist deine Telefonnummer? Wie ist dein Name? Wie ist deine Adresse? Wie ist deine Telefonnummer? Is clear what it means? Yeah. And could you now say your telephone number? Wie ist deine Handynummer? Das ist ein Handy. Das ist ein Handy. Wie ist deine Handynummer? From 1 to 12, each number has a kind of a unique name from 1 to 12, and then there is a pattern. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, then there is a unique number 20. Then again there is a pattern 21, 22 up to 30, 31, 32 up to 40 and so on and so forth. So, after 12 usually there are patterns in numbers, which is also the case in German as we see. 3 plus 10, 13. Yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, not 16, the S gets dropped out, 16, 16, not 17, again the EN gets dropped out, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, 20, 20. Yeah? 13, 14, 15, you can say it softly with me, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah? There is nothing to explain in this, you have to just learn the numbers, okay. And there are lots of resources available online where you can check your pronunciation, etc. You can also come back to class, come back to either me or Shashirekha and check your pronunciation. So, after 20, you have, in English you have 21, the tens comes first and the units comes afterwards. In German you have the reverse, 21. Ein, not eins, ein, ein und 20, 2 und 20, 3 und 20, 4 und 20, we are here, yeah? 5 und 20, 6 und 20, the whole word comes back, okay? The S doesn't get dropped. 6 und 20, 7, again the whole word comes back. 7 und 20, 28, 29, 30. Okay. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Again the same pattern will repeat, 31, 32 up to 39, 40, 40, 50, 60. Again that poor S is getting dropped, I am sorry about it, but it's dropped. Then again not 70 but 70. So the point to be noted is only 16, 17 and 60, 70, the S and EN are dropped, okay. Otherwise the 6 and 7 will come as whole words, 6 and 7, okay. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 or 100, just like we say either 100 or 100, 100 or 100, yeah. Yeah. So, you can just take a minute to go through in your mind all the numbers that we have done. So, which means numbers 1 to 100 should not be a problem, okay. Please write down for yourselves any random number and try and see how to say it or what its spelling would be, etc. We have a number 66, okay. That would be 6 und 60. In the 60 part, the S is dropped, but here the S is not dropped, okay. 66. Similarly, this would be 7 und 60. 7 und 60. 76. 76. 77. Same thing will happen for 76 and 77. Okay. Yeah, I have to let you, we're just 2 or 3 minutes left, in which, yeah, one new element to introduce apart from everything that has been covered is Guten Tag. Guten Tag. Wie geht es dir? Wie geht es dir? Es geht mir gut, danke. Shashirekha, guten Tag. Wie geht es dir?
Mir geht es gut, danke.
Ja, es geht mir gut oder mir geht es gut, danke, or simply danke, gut. What does the question mean? Yeah, basic question for how are you? Okay. And it basically also the literal translation, how is it going? But this is the standard question for how are you? And standard answer is danke gut. I'm fine, thanks, fine. Or es geht mir gut, danke. It goes with me good, thanks. Okay, es geht mir gut, danke. So these are standard phrases. You can't, no point in translating them literally. We just have to learn them. Guten Tag, wie geht es dir? Or we can simply say Guten Tag or Hallo. Wie geht's? Wie geht's? Danke gut. Okay, danke gut. Guten Tag, Herr Müller. Guten Tag, Herr Arhonen. Wie geht es Ihnen? Gut, danke. Und Ihnen? Auch gut. You've done the formal Z, no? The big Z yesterday. So this is the one form of that, that's why it's capital. Guten Tag, Herr Müller. Guten Tag, Herr Arhonen. Wie geht es Ihnen? Gut, danke. Und Ihnen? Auch gut. Auch gut. Okay. What is the difference between this dialogue and this dialogue? Yeah, this is informal and this is formal. So you have the word Herr coming in over here, Herr, Mr. So you address, in a formal context, you address somebody as Herr plus family name in the German context. Of course, it leads to confusion in India because, Hallo Corinna, hallo Timo, na, wie geht es dir? Danke, sehr gut. Und dir? Super. Ja? Hallo Corinna, hallo Timo. Na, wie geht es dir? Na. So, how's life? Yeah, I mean, na doesn't mean so, but it's just a particle, which in English, if you were to say the same mood, you would say, so, how's life? Okay, that kind of a thing. Na, wie geht es dir? Danke, sehr gut, sehr gut. Very good. I'm fine, I'm very fine. Danke, sehr gut. Und dir? Und dir means und wie geht es dir? But we don't have to repeat the whole thing. Und dir? Super. Okay. Wie geht's? Super. Danke, sehr gut. Gut, danke. Naja, es geht. I'm not really all that chilled out, then okay, it's okay, fine. Chalta hai, kind types. Naja, es geht. Ach, nicht so gut. I'm pretty much down in the dumps. I'm nicht so gut. Okay. So these are the possible responses to wie geht's or wie geht es dir. Okay. Wie geht es dir? Danke gut. Und dir? Auch gut. Or super. Danke, sehr gut. gut danke, naja, es geht, or ach, nicht so gut. Okay, so yeah, I think with that, the only thing that we have not yet done is the alphabet. Okay, and the alphabet in German is basically the same 26 letters plus one extra letter, which we had in, which number has that letter? No, 30 has that letter, which is a beta, which is in German called an SZ. Okay, it's a sharp S sound. It's a sharp S sound. That's the only thing. Mostly not very, sometimes not distinguishable from the S sound in some ways. In some ways clearly distinguishable, but in some ways not. And there are, of course, three A, O and U can get these two small kind of, they are not dots actually, they are small lines on top, which are called the umlaut, which means a change of sound, and that is the only additional thing in German, apart from the 26 letters of the alphabet, the additional thing, and we will do that in the next class. We will cover the alphabet. Okay. So otherwise, anything that we did today which you have questions you can ask, otherwise we